Hello, everybody. Welcome back to day 5 of competition here at the Gamestars Season 1 International Group Stage. That's right, day 5 of competition. 4 people have already moved on, and 4 people have already been eliminated. What's up, everybody? I'm Andrew Guy. Joining me today is Eric Benamou, former world champion, 2-time world champion, if you count CRL and, of course, WCG. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great until you reminded me WCG existed, but you know what? We can move on from that. I'll take the one-time champion and just put that one event to the side, even though we did win it. And I'm excited. One more day of the week, right? One more great group that we have today.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's when you and I got into the trenches for the first time together, battling it out against the officials over there at WCG. So, anyway, I digress. Let's hop into what we're doing today. We've had a lot of action happen this week. As I said, it is the 5th day of action. Lucas, GSM, so-called Burkan, and Financier, our 4 winners so far, moving on to our group finals that'll be taking place in May. Today, Eric, we have Group E coming up, 4 BO5s.
Yeah, 4 BO5s, and this group is obviously on that side of Group B, right, where we didn't really know what was going to happen. We don't have a lot of information on these players previous to this event, other than I don't want to butcher his name, Gene Aslan, maybe. You pronounce it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's the same one that was just in the top 32 for CRL, but if it is, he's definitely coming off a big weekend last weekend.
Yeah, and then, of course, Big Spin in there. Not the Big Spin that you guys may be very, very familiar with, but another Big Spin out there making a name for himself. These are the cards that we've been seeing having the most success so far here in Gamestars, and as you can see, that Mother Witch with the highest win rate at 61.8% being chosen a quarter of the time. And of course, the E-Barbs over there, the Fireball, a pretty obvious why if the Fireball can respond to the E-Barbs, and of course, that Mother Witch, Eric.
Yeah, and today we see, I'm pretty sure for the first time, we're going to see Minor, and it might just be the fact that it was in 5 of the 10 decks that we saw yesterday. So definitely that's a reason why it's up there, and the win rate makes sense. It's 50% because they kept going mirror matches, so obviously someone had to win it. But on the other end, like you said, Mother Witch, E-Barbs, and that Baby Dragon is, I think that Baby Dragon has been in the top user rate for the past year at least. Such good card, such a good utility splash. And it seems like whoever has been adapting to the meta with that Mother Witch and those Elite Barbarians has usually taken the set.
Yeah, definitely. Unless they match up against, or excuse me, except for when you match up against them. Graveyard, as you can see, not really in any of the win conditions because of Mother Witch being so popular right now, so dominant. As you can see in the bottom left-hand side there, an 80% win rate with that Mortar deck, but only a 4% selection. All these pretty low as we've gone through, as you said, 5 days of competition. Now this is the 5th day, so these decks pretty low. Eric, is there a deck that really has stood out to you this week?
I think it's definitely that Mega Knight Hoggies deck. I haven't seen it really struggle. We've seen so many different ways of playing it. Different players have used it, and honestly, every matchup that we've seen it has been able to either take the win fairly easily or fight to the end. So when you have a deck that even in worse matchups has a good decent chance of winning, that's definitely the deck that stands out to me.
Yeah, so let's take a look at Group E one more time, look at the bracket and the schedule for today before we meet our players. You know, just to kind of carry on with what you were saying there, that Mega Knight being cycled in the back yesterday was a big problem for one of our players. Specifically, I believe it was SRV that kept cycling it in the back. Hopefully that's not something that we will see today when we do get into our matches. So we can take a look at the bracket for today's matches. I believe we will be seeing 2 BO5s here in Group E, and you know, it's always interesting here because the person, or the group that goes first here, Gen 3 and Aslan and Roofy, those are going to be the first match of the day. That second group gets a lot of information going into their second matchup of the day.
Absolutely. And you know what, at the end we've seen it here where honestly, if you do lose 3-0 and you only showed one deck, it's not all that bad. In other tournaments you would be like, okay, I lost 3-0, I'm in a terrible place. I didn't win a game. But at this point it's completely different. You don't show anything. So I think in that first match, it might be smart, even if you're kind of hitting a little bit of a wall, to continue using that one deck just so you don't give up information.
Yeah, if you feel like you're not going to get out of there, give away as little as possible. Let's get to meet our players from Group E just a little bit better from their own mouths here before we hop into the action.
Merhaba, ismim Kadir, 18 yaşındayım, Türkiye'liyim. Clash Royale zevk aldığım için oynuyorum. Küresel turnuvalarda 37. ve kupa sıralamasında 103. bitirdim. Favori kartım Elit Barbarlar çünkü dengeliden sonra bayağı güçlüler. Bu benim ilk büyük uluslararası turnuvam. Rakiplerimi şu an için tanımıyorum ama oynadıkları destelere bakarak iyi bir strateji yapabileceğime inanıyorum. Turnuvadaki hedefim ilk 3'e girebilmek, herkese bol şans.
Меня зовут Максим, я из города Пскова, мне 17 лет, в Clash Royale играю больше 4 лет. Так, про моих соперников я знаю украинского, он довольно сильный игрок, вот, видел его несколько раз, то есть опасный соперник. А остальных, не видел ни разу, но должны быть тоже сильные игроки, раз уж дошли до сюда. Так, мне нравится играть големом, потому что это тяжелая карта, за которой можно построить очень хороший пуш и, соответственно, сломать вышку сопернику, то есть, что будет очень эффективно. Конечно, хотелось бы с первого места в группе выйти и лишний раз не волноваться об этом. Но если не получится, то не страшно, все равно выйду с другого места, выиграю там остальных и все равно выйду в этот финал. Я тренируюсь день, по-разному. То есть бывает, что иногда побольше, иногда поменьше. Если есть время, то, конечно, побольше. Вот. Если играю в какие-то турниры или соревнования, то, соответственно, часов 5, возможно, даже 6. Я думаю, Россия покажет себя очень круто на этом турнире, и мы займем первые 4 места на этом турнире.
Звати Андрій, 18 років, з Івано-Франківської області. Граю в Clash Royale 3-4 роки. Big Spin з Росії, не слабенький. Далі наступний, швидше за все, прийде Gens Aslan з Туреччини. От він сильний. Швидше за все, що проти нього є шанс програти. Я надіюсь, що виграю, але об'єктивно противник самий сильний в нашій групі. Моя улюблена карта Шахтар. Тому що більшість колод з цією картою потребують скіла. Моя ціль на Gamestars – забрати перше місце.
I'm Arthur, I'm 17 years old, and I come from Poland. I played Clash Royale since 3 years. I think I'm pretty good, I'm not the best of course. I'm still practicing and getting better, but I think I'm pretty good. Of course, like I said, the gank is so strong that, to be honest, I don't think I will finish in first place, but we will see.
A lot of personality coming out meeting our players today. We had one of them just straight up calling out his opponent, Broken, saying that Big Spin is weak. What do you think about that?
Yeah, right after we saw the video of Big Spin talk, like, no, I know the guy from UK and he's super strong. So definitely they're on two different pages here. But I think overall, compared to yesterday's group, everyone came out saying, you know what, I'm gonna beat everyone. Like super confident group. This group seems a little more, humble. Let's see what happens. We saw a lot of the players just say, look, if I move on, that's great. Everyone in my group is really good, so I'm excited to see how I do. So definitely a big change, other than Broken, who basically said he's gonna win. And on also the one little thing I want to touch on, Big Spin said his favorite card is Golem. Big Spin, I hope you can play it better than the other players that have played it, because it has not done well.
That's exactly what I was thinking when I heard him say Golem. Hopefully we'll see him add some W's to the Golem's win column there. And yeah, man, the other thing that I noticed with that intro there with all of our players was that they all seem to be very familiar with Aslan. They all know of his name, and as he said, he was 36th, I believe, in the top 1,000. So a guy that's going to be very competitive here today, and he is going to be in our first match of the day. It's going to be him and Roofy. Roofy was one of those guys that you said was very humble, says that I believe he's a big fan of the minor, and I'm not really sure what to expect here. I hope that he doesn't get in his own head giving so much credit to Aslan, because everyone in this group seems to be thinking about him specifically.
Yeah, and I mean, it is normal, because apart from that, he also did go through the qualifier stage and make it to the Sunday of CRL for top 32, which is a very big deal. He didn't qualify to the top 8, but having that, experience and confidence from last weekend going into this weekend, it's definitely going to help him.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the few players that I believe, maybe the only player that we've talked about so far in this tournament, other than Igor, who we've discussed but has not competed yet, who has even qualified to be in that top 1,000 and has been mentioned to be close to that top 32.
Yeah, him and the only other player would be Dimas, but like you said,
Oh,
this
right,
is very,
Dimas.
very rare that we see it, right? It's not something that we're used to in this tournament, to have someone that just plays so well. And I think the first thing to point out is why he plays that well. We saw how many people run lava and they keep running the old versions with the barbs. Look at the difference. Someone who just qualified into the top 32 of CRL automatically changed those barbs for the E-barbs.
And I guarantee you, a month ago, if we would have spoken to him then, he wouldn't have said that the E-barbs are his favorite card, but he said it's very strong in the meta right now. He adapted, which is something you and I have spoken about all week long this week. Remember, guys, these decks, there are rules. You cannot repeat all 8 cards, but you can repeat 6, which means you could have Elite Barbarians in every single one of your decks if you so choose. But that is the format here. Every single player has to bring 3 decks to competition. They must win with every single deck. That is the other tricky part of this. So you got to make sure that you know how to play with all 3.
Yeah, you definitely do. You cannot be, well, you can be a one trick, but it hasn't really worked out from what we've seen it. The players that have tried to use one specific win condition all 3 times have not gone on to win their groups. So I think generally it's smarter to go 3 different style decks that you feel comfortable with and not just focus on one. What I would recommend is exactly what you said. You can repeat those Elite Barbarians. You can repeat that Mother Witch. So go ahead and do it. Just, I wouldn't recommend the exact deck archetype to be repeated over and over again.
Yeah, there's just something about it where if you run into an opponent that has, maybe they're the same way as you are, maybe they're stubborn in the way that they choose their decks, but your one archetype matches up poorly against all 3 of their decks, that puts you in a really, really tough spot. Or even if it matches up just at a 50-50, you're not giving yourself any sort of advantage, which is something that you kind of look for in Clash Royale, especially in formats like this.
It definitely is, and right now it's working out for him. Yesterday's matchup, we saw this, almost this exact same matchup being played with barbs instead of the Elite Barbarians, and it was a completely different match. This time when he lavaed in the back and there was Elite Barbarians coming at him, all he had to do was Elite Barbs on his own side, and that was it. Yesterday we saw Elite Barbarians go into barbs and absolutely obliterate them.
So this game happened like rather quickly. It almost felt like if you blinked, you would have missed why it was so firmly in Aslan's control. Is there any way that you can break that down for us, Eric? Was there something that Rufy did wrong, or did he just not play his defenses correctly? It just felt like Aslan was so in control that whole time that neither of them were surprised when that game ended.
It was a little bit different in the situation that he had Barb Barrel. There was Skarmy on the other side. The Hoggies just were never going to do damage. So the only way that he could actually get a push in is if all the Hoggies would be behind the Mega Knight, so that the Mega Knight would clean up those Skarmies, those Skellies. He wasn't able to do that. And every time he did a Hoggies push, the Skarmy would come down, and his only small spell was that Barb Barrel, which wouldn't be able to clear them out.
Yeah, I believe that is exactly what it was. You saw how much value that Aslan kept getting out of that Skarmy, getting the positive trade, getting a slight counter push, just so many things working his way with that. And as you said, that Barb Barrel just not able to get on top of those skeletons, no zap, and you can't predict a fireball with that Royal Hog push that early in the game.
Absolutely. And I think, look, we saw it again just happen, right? A lot of Mega Knights coming out of the back, and that just gives Lava way too much time. You cannot give Lava, you cannot give Golem these big massive pushes that then, look, you let him rack up elixir while he's just waiting for the Lava and he's receiving no pressure. And when you have the Elite Barbarians as well, that's a solo defense for the Mega Knight with a 1 elixir positive trade. So all around the board, he was just giving 1 elixir over and over again while allowing him to build these massive pushes.
That has been a really fascinating thing about the competition so far this week, Eric, because it does feel like the Mega Knight, which was a card I believe when we entered day 3 of competition was one of our highest win rate cards and one of our most used cards. It does seem that the play with the Mega Knight has been one of the most inconsistent things of the tournament.
It definitely has, and it might also be the fact that we had very experienced players the first 2 days with Dimas, Lucas, and Mateja. They obviously have a lot more experience, maybe a little bit of a higher level when it comes to these competitions as well. And then when we saw it in the hands of a little bit less experienced players, or players that might not be so used to using it at this level, we saw those mistakes that visually when you watch the game, if you're not at that pro level or you don't really study the game, they don't seem like mistakes. They just seem like, oh, that was unfortunate. But at the end of the day, it is a mistake the way you play it, when you play it, and where you play it.
Yeah, definitely. With how heavy it is and how slow it is, and you talk about needing that DPS sometimes on defense. So here we go. We finally see a mortar come out here from Aslan, but could be too little too late. Only 591 remaining on that bottom left-hand tower after a big balloon connection from earlier. We're seeing Roofy get some great chip damage in. Baby Dragon putting in some work on that right-hand side, and just seems like over the next 30 seconds, there should be a very, very easy win here for Roofy. Should be easy defenses, just dropping units in the middle. Doesn't need to get another balloon out, and just needs minor chip plus that fireball.
Yeah, honestly, I think at that point you could have even just minored the tower. You don't really need to take care of the musketeer because you do have fireball in this deck. So with a little bit extra chip and just some fireball cycles, I think it would have just been smarter than trying to chip half the damage onto that musketeer. I don't know what the play there was, but he needs to start getting that damage on tower. And these mortars I'm not loving because he's gonna get fireball value out of it if he does decide to hit it onto the tower and the mortar as well. And it's a matter of time, but it's only a matter of time if he actually starts getting some chip.
Yeah, Roofy needs to kind of turn up the pressure here a little bit. And as you're talking about with those mortars, it would be better to get them higher on the inside. That way you're not able to get fireball value down on top of both. And, you know, Roofy right now putting himself in a really bad position. That mortar is going to lock onto tower. Oh, no, never mind. The Ice Wizard came down just in the nick of time.
Now it is, though. He needs to fireball it, and he decides not to fireball the tower, which I'm not really sure why. You can always just knight onto that musketeer. You have a bomb tower as well. This game would have been over already.
Yeah, it feels like he's really giving Aslan way more of a chance than he needs. Down to 275 on the bottom left-hand side. You see the Knight come down on top. Up on top of that Miner that's just chipping away on that tower, bringing it down to 670. Miner in maybe to the inside. Yes, it is. Valkyrie is there to pick it up. Perfect drop there from Aslan. Really nice going to that number 3 spot. Here's the inside mortar that we were just talking about, Eric. This way, there is no way to get fireball value on top of that mortar and the Musketeer and the tower. He really seems like he is. That Musketeer, or excuse me, that Miner is on the tower. Musketeer helping at the bridge. Miner goes into the front of the tower, caught by the skeletons once again. 289 on that tower, ticking down with the power of that poison. Log is in, and this is crazy. Miner gets caught.
Poison comes down. He wins this game.
NATO is in. Nothing is there. Miner gonna go to the back. Poison chipping away. 3 miners in a row. Catch. You see Aslan right there with a little smile to himself. That was incredibly impressive defense.
It was incredibly impressive defense, and I am absolutely shook, man. 1,500 on the tower, and you throw 4 fireballs onto mortars and musketeers. Instead of the tower, you were at 2 fireball range. You don't even have to miner it. You could just tank for the Valk with the miner. You can bomb tower, make some time, right? You have everything. And it seemed like he just gave Aslan way too much respect. He didn't want to cycle. He didn't want to take the fireball damage. He even gave him a free mortar that was placed a little too far back. That would have hit mortar and the tower with the fireball. And even then, how many times have we seen the pros, when you have the tower down that low, you miner and fireball at the same time, because it moves that troop that he would predict it with, and you get that minor damage.
Yeah, you know, all of those points you make are incredibly sound, Eric. And I think the other thing that you really kind of hit on the head was just the fact that he gave him too much credit. He was playing against him like he was literally the god of Clash Royale that could never make a mistake. Needs to get a little bit more aggressive, give him a little bit less respect at the bridge, you know, and get some damage on that tower. As you said, those miners could have came out as tanks for the mortars as opposed to dropping the Ice Wizard there to help slow things down. Then you'd have a miner and Ice Wiz on defense. You can fireball the tower, but just not making the right decisions in the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what happened there. A little bit of a meltdown, to say it like that. I don't like to say it, but it is kind of like that, right? Because he had full control of the game. Me and you basically said this is game over. This is it. When we see balloon decks generally that don't even have miner and it goes down to that 400 or 500 range, we still already call the game. This one not only had miner, but it also had fireball. So to take 300-400 damage should be pretty easy. He needs to just get out of that game now mentally, though. And I think you see it in his facial expression, right? He's a little bit disappointed, maybe still thinking about that previous game.
Yeah, he does seem a little bit distracted, whereas Aslan on the other side just kind of seems dialed in right now. Roofy going to drop that flying machine up high. Aslan on the other side of it going to get the Mother Witch down to send some Hoggies down that right-hand lane. Obviously going to get some defense here. There we go. Electro Wizard dropped on top of both of those guys.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, obviously you might be wondering why the Mother Witch did not spawn any little Hoggies. The Mother Witch does not enchant the other Mother Witch's little Hoggies, so it's not a glitch. It's not that it didn't work well, nothing like that. It's just the way the mechanic works.
Yeah, it is a very interesting mechanic there, but it does make sense. You wouldn't want the two of them just be duking it out and sending Hogs across the bridge back and forth. Mega Knight dropped maybe a little soon there. Would have been nice to hit the Bandit and the Mega Knight, but the spacing could have been perfect by Aslan. Now you see Roofy going back on the offense.
Yeah, back on the offense, and at this point, he needs to start getting a little bit more aggressive, exactly like that. I really like this play just because it forced out the Mega Knight, and now you have your own Mega Knight, right? If you play it defensively, you can tank for this. I would like to see it used now. I think he cannot take this damage, and that's a bad placement. You cannot put it off to the side because that Ram Rider will just go right in the middle. The placement for that was more on top because we already seen it so many times, right? Where those two Mega Knights go at it and the troop behind it just gets stuck and cannot do anything. That would have been the placement.
Yeah, I mean, you're calling a perfect game here, man. This is why we have you up in the booth. You sit there and you recognize these things instantaneously. That Mega Knight being dropped just off to the side is the reason why Roofy is completely out of this game. Fireball value there. Aslan says, no problem. I'll take that 10 times out of 10, hitting both of the E-Barbs. We see the pile up at the bridge, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Bandit is going to dash in, and now we see the dual lane pressure coming in on the opposite side with a high Mega Knight.
Yeah, and it might just be a little too late. You see the good game out of Aslan. He's not going to commit the same mistakes that were just committed on him by not cycling those fireballs. We saw it. He saw the tower damage. He went fireball, cycle, fireball. That's all you have to do. Don't overthink it. Don't over defend. And that is a pretty quick set.
Yeah, a very, very clean 3 up and 3 down for Aslan, which honestly isn't super surprising when you talk about how much respect he had coming into Group E and how much the other players in Group E kind of spoke his praises. I think the biggest issue there was in Game 2, Eric.
Yeah, I think, and I don't think he was able to recover mentally from that. You saw it in his face. We saw the difference between Game 1 and 2 when you have that player cam. That's one of like the things that's cool to see. It's not only, you know, about watching the reactions when something good happens, but it's also you can tell that he was a little bit off. And now you have time, right? Now you have to reset. You're not out of this yet. And to be honest, at the beginning of that second game, he actually played very well.
Yeah, he just could not close things out. Game 1, you know, you can call it a mulligan. You just walk away from it, rough matchup or just rough plays. Game 2 was the one that you really needed to bounce back from. And you know, when you talk about that player cam, it really does kind of give an insight into what's going on in the mind of the players. And Roofy was clearly very uncomfortable and playing out of sorts there in game number 3. Aslan, very clean here through 3. You can see he rocks 3 different win conditions, which is something that you and I talked about earlier today. I think it's really important. And as you can see there, E-Barbs in the second deck, that very top deck, that is one of the most popular mortar decks on the left-hand side in the meta right now. And of course, on the very bottom there, you see that Mega Knight Ram Rider deck, but with the Mother Witch, a man that has clearly adapted to the meta that we're in.
Absolutely, and it's what we've seen all tournament. You adapt, you move on, and he's just proving it here again. Obviously, I think he was the superior player in this match, mechanic-wise, deck-wise, and just overall macro of the game, but he still is not in that finals, right? He still has to go up against either Big Spinner or Broken, and the only deck that really worries me out of Aslan right now is that Ram Rider deck. It wasn't a bad matchup that he just had. He played it well as well, but it's not one of those very strong win conditions, and it is a kind of an iffy deck, and that's a little bit worrisome to me because we've seen it happen to top players of their groups before. That one bad deck choice could be the reason why you don't move on.
Yeah, I mean, so far in the competition, we've seen a lot of buildings being played, mainly the Goblin Cage, which will do a very good job of pulling that Ram Rider in. And then, of course, the E-Barbs, which is a great trade there with the Mega Knights. So that is one of the things that you have to look to or look out for, I guess I should say, when you're playing that deck. So Broken and Big Spin, some guys that had some words for one another in the pregame here, one calling the other one a bit overrated. I'm very curious to see how this set plays out.
Yeah, it seems like they definitely know each other. It might be that friendly banter or not. I'm excited every time there's a little bit of talk before the match. It makes it that much more exciting for them, for us, and for everyone watching. So, I mean, if you guys want to get to know each other previous to your matches and then talk a little, you know, talk a little trash here and there, I'm all for it. I used to do it all the time. I love it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think it's good. You know, this is a big part of the community. The Clash Royale community, the pros, they love to talk trash to one another. You see it all the time on Twitter. Even if they're not talking about Clash, you'll still see a little sub-tweet or a sub-response of them just throwing a little shade towards someone's way, whether they've beaten them in the past or not. So I love that. I love that community that we have here in Clash Royale. And so Broken and Big Spin maybe trying to break their way through to that next level. As we said, Aslan did very, very well when you talk about the CRL qualifier, getting into that top 1,000, getting into the top 50, and even higher than that. He's going to be sitting by and waiting against Broken and Big Spin. I'm very curious about this matchup in the sense that, Eric, I think this is maybe one of the first BO5s that we saw today where there weren't any buildings played on one side of the board. Is that correct? Did we see any out from Ruthie? Just a bomb tower?
Yeah, we saw one deck with the bomb tower and then on the other side one deck with the mortar, but overall You're right, we saw a lot of cage usually when we watch these matches. And on this specific match we're gonna watch now, we know that a golem is a favorite card from one of the players, and on the other side I think it was a miner that they said so, or it was more of a cycle card. So I'm curious to see how they match up. And also something very important right now is for Aslan to be watching these matches and understand the possible matchups, the decks, which deck is the worst and how can I get it out of the way quick in my next set so that I can move on from it and really feel comfortable in my matchup.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really, really great thing for them to look at. I don't know if we're having some issues right now with the players getting ready, but you know, you and I can kind of just keep talking through some of the beats. One thing I was curious about was with how explosive this meta is right now, Eric, is Poison still as viable as Fireball? Like a lot of times you'll find them just completely interchangeable just based off of the deck that you're running, but it does feel like in this competition specifically, we have seen way more success and usage from the Fireball, which just comes out on top of those Skeleton Dragons.
I think the Fireball is definitely the superior spell at the moment, just because of how much we're seeing flying machines, how much we're seeing even the elite barbs. You don't kill them, you don't get them off the board, but you push them back, you take instant health from them, and a lot of hoggies as well with the Mother Witch. The poison, yes, it will kill the flying machine. Yes, it will take care of that Mother Witch, but it's over time, right? So it's still doing damage and possibly moves out of that radius. And we're not seeing as much graveyard. Before we saw a lot of graveyard, so poison was a very, very far superior spell. It would take care of it. We would see graveyard even in mortar decks, in cannon card, right, in everything. So now that you don't really see it, I think I would rather see Fireball.
Yeah, and it does definitely seem to be the more popular of those two spells. Mortar coming out here once again for Broken on the left hand side. There is the Fireball to meet the Skeleton Dragons. Once this cage comes down, we'll see what Big Spin drops. Mortar gonna lock on tower if nothing does, and no unit to catch.
I just don't think he has anything, right? Anything that actually would tank for that, or he just decides, you know what, I'm gonna take this damage, I'm gonna see what he does and start a push of my own, which I don't really mind. We've talked about it before. When you play these very, very heavy decks, it is important for you to understand when you can soak up some damage and then move on and build a push of your own. All it takes is one big lava push.
I really like this dual lane pressure. You see him kind of double down on the left-hand side with the Mortar being down, the Knight plus Spear Goblins. His opponent drops Barbs there, and he sends Royal Hogs down the right-hand side, taking that tower down to 606, but now having to deal with this big push here on the right. Flying Machine in, misses the Mega Minion with that. Arrows are down, but the Royal Delivery is there to help out. 965. Pretty clean.
Yeah, that Royal Delivery is such a good card in this matchup. It is anything. If you want one thing in your deck, it is definitely that, because you obviously will not play arrows in Mortar Hoggy's deck, but that choice of small spell is phenomenal out of him and really saved him the game there. There is nothing else that would have saved that tower other than a delivery when we're talking about small spells. A zap would have delayed it and a snowball as well, but everything would have stayed alive.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the delivery landing on top of a bunch of units is one of the more satisfying interactions in the entire game. Fireball going to come in, going to make way for those Hoggies to get on tower. That is going to be towered down. And just in the nick of time, with 377 remaining on the top right, delivery was locked, loaded, and ready to go. But I don't know if it would have been enough. It might have been a tower take there. We could have gone into a 2-tower game, but honestly, don't have to worry about it. An easy win there. A lot of control coming out from the top of your screen.
Absolutely. He definitely understands how to play that deck. He waited. As soon as he saw the lava go down and the mortar not defended, we saw the spear goblins go down with the knight to force pressure, to force the defense. And as soon as he saw the barbs, you can tell he was hovering over with those Hoggies, because as soon as those barbs went down to defend the left, he threw down those piggies and they all went on tower. And I think it did almost 1,500, 1,600 damage straight away.
Yeah, it was a beautiful sequence there. He saw the fireball come out, and instead of sending the hogs right away, he decides to double down on the left-hand side to get the barbs out, because the barbs are also a great response to the royal hogs. Those come out because of the knight plus spear goblins. So thinking of the sequencing here and thinking of Big Spin and how he was kind of looking into the future, Broken was looking into the future there. Really, really nicely played, use of baiting out spells, baiting out responses, and then getting that hogs on the tower. Very, very good stuff.
Very well played first match. And if this whole set is going to be this close, I'm very excited for it, because even though he won, and we are talking about the control that he had, it was probably 2 seconds off of being a 2-tower game, like you said earlier on. And we're going to see an elixir pump here, which should mean 3 musketeers.
Yeah, the first time that we're seeing the pump or the 3 ladies coming up here in Gamestars, assuming that's what it would be. I'd be shocked if it was anything else. You see the other cards kind of put together there. And Mega Knight probably not what Big Spin wants. It's going to be a good response to a couple muskies crossing the bridge, or as you saw, that pile up right there.
Yeah, this is not looking good. The 2 cards that are left should be Hoggies and Fireball. So definitely not what you want to see when you're running 3 musketeers. A Mega Knight for the side with 2 of them, and a Fireball if you try to build a push with the 1 single musketeer. This is going to be really, really tough for him.
And you see Big Spin having to drop some more units down there to protect that pump, get a little bit more elixir on the board, as Broken has completely neglected it. There we go, Fireball down, and then a Bar Barrel going to come in and clean all that up. And that's going to be a really nice heal spirit if it lands in time. No, it does not. Great placement there on those zappies.
Very heads up placement. Make sure to get them as far away as possible to not get that heal, because if that heal does come down, it's 1 or 2 more hits, but out of that troop, that is 600 damage. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, that is one of the things now, is you cannot ignore the elite barbarians before. I mean, before you never wanted to ignore them either, but now even 1 hit is so substantial. It just cannot happen.
Yeah, and here's a problem, right? Fireball, if he wants, he has he has Mega Knight on the left. I'm assuming it's going to come down any second now. He doesn't have time to heal Spirited, so this is all going to die in the Musketeer as well. And look how easily he defended everything, even though he had a pump in hand, right? Look at that tower go down, 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 down with the flag machine and the elite barb.
Yeah, I love the E-Barbs behind there from Broken, turning around the units, breaking up that big push. That's one of the worst things that you can do when you're playing against that 3 Musketeers deck, is just allow them to put together the exact push that they want. Connection on the right-hand side, plus that Heal Spirit, not going to land with the Fireball coming in. Broken just making sure he's playing smart here. Not enough time. And that well played, I'm thinking, is a little bit more BM than anything else. Little Night Witch kiss to come out to hit that point home.
Yeah, I mean, look, congrats, Broken, on winning that. But I think the biggest problem would have been if he didn't win that matchup. That is something that, yes. I mean, you need to win it. You have everything you need. Elite Barbs, you don't want to use your Mega Knight. You Elite Barbs on your side. Musketeers, you have Fireball. You have Mega Knight. You have absolutely everything. So, I mean, good match from Big Spin. From Broken. But Big Spin, man, I'm not sure taking a risk on a 3 Muskies deck unless your
Yeah.
name is Osama is worth it.
Yeah, that's basically what I was gonna say as well. I just am very, very surprised to see it come out here in competition. You know, you get the idea of like, hey, maybe 3M used to be your comfort deck, or hey, maybe you want to keep your opponent guessing. But you know, with how popular Royal Hogs have been, with how popular Fireball has been, and how prevalent E-Barbs have been, it just doesn't seem like setting up for a pump in this meta. It just doesn't seem to really work that well. There's so much bridge pressure that you need a lot of elixir to respond to.
Absolutely. And even if he doesn't have bridge pressure, what have we seen other than that? We've seen miners. So what, you're gonna have to over defend your pump on a miner or just let it go for 3 elixir. It's just a lose-lose situation overall, and the miner decks that we've seen are mortar. So if you play that mortar enough far back, you force out a troop in front of the 3 musketeers earlier than he would like to, and it's all downhill from there as well. We've seen Valk, we've seen so many. I just don't think it's the right deck for the meta, or at least the meta of the GameStar tournament.
Yeah, and a little nugget of information that you may have just missed over there with what Eric was describing was also, you know, you talk about defending 3 musketeers when you are playing mortar, and that is a really great way to do it. You get that mortar down early, and you are able to make your opponent drop a unit way high up to protect those musketeers. And here we go, right back to it. Pump is down, E-Barbs are in, Wall Breakers behind, Miner in on the backside, and you just see Big Spin not laughing in real life, but you see him throw out the laughing emote.
And it's funny how things work, right? We just spoke about Mega Knight this, and then I say, and if it's not Mega Knight, it's Miner, and you have to over defend the pump. And the first thing we see out of it is a Miner being over defended with a bandit and a nice golem to try and catch it. And you now spent 5 elixir defending 3 elixir, and on top of that, your pump disappeared. So it's just not a good trade.
Yep, and there we go. Just really playing into the hands of, I mean, that's even a play that you do at 5,000 trophies right there. Is if you're going to miner the tower and you know they're going to defend, I mean, sometimes you don't even send the miner to the pump and you just fireball the pump in the tower and you get the miner chip damage, but he did the right thing there. He goes to the back, bandits drop down, bandit takes a few shovel hits from the miner, fireball in, all of it cleaned up off the board. And with only 473 remaining, this is a very, very rough start to the end of a set for Big Spin.
It sure is. And when you look at that interaction, it's probably the interaction that's going to happen over and over again, right? That every time he pumps, you're going to see that miner. He's going to try and catch it with the bandit, and it's going to be fireballed. And when you look at that, just on strict elixir, you're already down 2 elixir from that trade itself, right? That's it. And on top of that, you have to realize that this deck doesn't really function unless you're getting that extra elixir from the pump. So you're taking away functionability as well from it.
Wow, and you talk about extra elixir. 10 elixir just dropped to catch that miner, which still gets on tower. He could have just held the E-Wiz, dropped it on top of the miner, but he's just playing uncomfortably right now. He's trying to make things happen, trying to make sure no damage comes in. 133 remains on that left-hand side, which is within fireball range. And honestly, these Royal recruits have been a nuisance for Big Spin as well.
They definitely have. And another thing that I wanted to point out is it's crazy how one deck pick, right? If he went with this deck pick first matchup, this could be 2-0, possibly 3-0 in the hands of Big Spin, because that lava deck, there is no chance it beats this 3 Musketeers deck. Absolutely no shot. So, I mean, if he played that first, he not only would have got a win, but he would have got rid of this 3 Musketeers deck. And now I don't think it was the right time to use that second up, because look, Broken already used a lava deck. What are the odds someone uses 2 lava decks? Not that high. So maybe save that till the end and try to get another couple wins.
So Broken, the man calling out Big Spin in our pregame today, and he puts his money where his mouth is. 3 up, 3 down. Eric, we've had 6 games today and 2 winners. So it's been sweeps all through half of the competition, which means that this should be a really, really good showdown between our champions and a very interesting showdown in our elimination bracket.
It definitely should. We don't know what to expect. I think both of them have one deck that they haven't showed on the elimination side. They both use 2 different decks. So we still have a third deck that we're waiting to see. And at the top of the matchup here, it's like you said, the battle of undefeated. They are both 3-0 today. Arguably a little bit easier matchups for Broken just because of how well all of his decks went against that Three Musketeer, but I'm really excited to see them face off because of how dominant they were.
Yes, exactly. The dominance from Broken and from Aslan should be very, very exciting to see in our third matchup of the day. That is another BO5. The winner of our third set will be pushed on through to our international finals. The loser of that game will have a chance to redeem themselves in a couple weeks down the road. And just while we're taking a break here in between the action, just to let you guys know what's going on, Eric and I have been casting Gamestars all week this week, Monday through Friday. We're taking next week off, and we will be back with Group F on the 26th of April at 9 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. CEST. So make sure you guys set your clocks, set that subscribe, or hit the subscribe, turn on your notifications. That way you do not miss the action when we come back to play. So here we go. 3-0, 3-0. Broken, Aslan, Roofy, Big Spin. What are your thoughts?
I'm excited, man. I'm actually very, very hyped to see that winners match. They both played so well, and they both have, you know, a deck that isn't as prevalent in this meta. So I'm curious to see how Aslan is gonna do with that Ram Rider deck. Maybe it is, like you said earlier, that comfort deck for him. And there's people that are just so good with the deck that it doesn't really matter what they match up against or what the meta is looking like. So that's my key point to victory for Aslan, to get a win with that Ram Rider deck.
Yeah, and with Roofy and Big Spin, my biggest thing for them is just lay it all on the line. You've literally got nothing left to lose. You went 0-3 in your first 3 games. Might as well come out and 3-0 your opponent in the next one. Send them home with the goose egg. And with Aslan and Broken, I'm very curious to see how either of them is going to respond to a little bit of resistance, something that neither of them got much of in their particular opening sets. Broken, I'd say less than Aslan, as Aslan did have that incredibly impressive game number 2 where he was down over 1,000 HP and was able to come back with incredible defenses and just minor chip damage. So I liked what I saw out of him playing through adversity. Broken, on the other side of it, was basically untouched through 3 games.
Definitely, it's something that we've seen in CRL, we've seen in all players. Everything's looking pretty and nice when you haven't lost, but it's how you react to being in a position where you lost one match, possibly 2, you know, an 0-2 hole. We've seen people come back from it, but it all depends on the player, their mentality and their way, you know, of carrying themselves. So you're right on that. We have to see how they react to a loss, because one of them is going to lose.
So talk to me a little bit about matchups here, Eric. You're much more of a matchup master than I am. What are your just initial thoughts when you look at these 6 decks, all with a 100% win rate from these 2 players?
When I look at these decks, what I'm really looking at here is if he gets that Mega Knight Ram Rider matchup against the Recruits matchup, I think that might be his best shot. It doesn't have any building. The Mega Knight could defend very easily to the Recruit, so he just has to play very defensive, as well as the Night Witch spawning a lot of little hoggies with the Spear Goblins, with the Wall Breakers, and it's probably the most decent matchup in my opinion. He's gonna struggle a little bit with the Mega Knight versus Mega Knight, just because those Zappies do take care of the Ram Rider, and it would force out a Fireball over and over again and would leave that Flying Machine open. And then we have 2 Mortar decks, which we've seen happen before. He has the advantage of the Hoggy's Fireball on one side, but you do have to realize that there's nothing to really catch that miner other than the Hunter, which would give poison value over and over again.
Yeah, that's actually what I kind of want to see out of Aslan first. I'd love to see the Mortar deck out of him first to kind of feel out his opponent. Now we see a log meeting one of those Wall Breakers, so we know what Broken is going to be running. The deck that we just saw out of him. Fireball going to come down and get on top of that Musketeer, taking it off the board. Aslan with a little tilt to the head and the well played to his opponent, recognizing this is going to already be a little bit different than his first set.
It definitely is, and a little unfortunate because this is the matchup that I wanted to see him use that Ram Rider deck, but you called it. He is definitely going to be using that Mortar deck up first, and it's a good call, right? It's a deck that you can definitely use your control with. You get your feet into the set, you feel it out a little bit, and it's a little bit more of a defensive and assured deck.
Yeah, exactly. I think it leaves you less vulnerable to the other decks that we saw out of Broken. So now he can kind of put himself in a position moving forward, whether he wins or loses this game, knowing what his opponent has to bring forward, can then maybe put himself in better matchup positions down the line. I really enjoy that from Aslan here in this deck selection. And Right now, we're going to see maybe a high... Yep, there's a Musketeer coming down. Going to help out on both sides. Skeletons to pull those in on the right-hand side. Should be a nice, clean, easy defense here from Aslan, who is behind by about 380 HP, bottom right to top left.
Yeah, he's behind, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday. If that log does go out of cycle, you need to always have that delivery hovered over. It is not enough time if you don't have it hovered over to take care of the wall breakers or the hoggies, or the elite barbarians coming through on the other side, right? So you need to make sure that you have that very well placed. And I thought this deck had hoggies in it. Is it a missed copy?
The deck here from Broken?
Yeah, did he? I for some reason I thought it was a weird variation where he had hoggies in it. I must have just misread it when I saw it originally. It's still early for me. I know it's not as early as for you.
I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like I did see hoggies out of it. Must have been in the other iteration of it. But yeah, so here we go. Anyway, wall breaker split here, and we get a hunter coming down on top of that mortar. Hopefully it's not a missed copy, because a missed copy is an immediate forfeiture of the game. So obviously we'll keep you guys posted on that as we continue through this action, as we're about to get into overtime.
Yeah, I could just be going crazy after a full week of seeing so many decks that I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore at this point. So it could just be me. And look, he is down right now. Oh no, I was gonna say he is down right now, but it's not that much. And as soon as I'm about to say that, the elite barbarian swings on tower.
Yeah, the curse of the caster there. Ebarb getting that tower down to 736. Broken has no problem resetting every time with these royal recruits splitting 3 and 3, because you see what has to happen here from Aslan. That Musketeer has to come out in defense, and this time, since it was cycled to the right-hand side, gives a little bit more fireball value than he would have liked to give. He was cycling it to the left before with skeletons to pull. Now maybe a delivery on the left-hand side.
Yeah, that delivery is going to disappear really quickly, so he needs to put the Valk, but it did buy him a little bit of time. It is pretty costly for just buying yourself time at 3 elixir. It's not those skellies, right, that you can just put 1 elixir down, doesn't really change anything. But over time, he could still cycle those miners with the poisons. He needs to be careful here and be hovering 100% on that delivery. We know that he no longer has log in cycle. Those minor wall breakers could come down at any time, and that is what we didn't see out of the first set that we did, that we are seeing here. We spoke about it a little bit. You minor and fireball push back that troop and you secure some chip.
And here we go, this time getting the rotation that he'd like. Musketeer low left side, high with the skeletons there. Wall breakers coming in to the right. Valkyrie going to be placed up high, going to mitigate that 100%. But as you said, now not a lot there to catch the miner, because that miner fireball is a very dangerous thing to deal with. And there you go, the high skeleton actually turns the miner for 1 second. Aslan drops his first game of the day. Broken, perfect through 4.
This is great for Broken. Not only is he perfect through 4, but the weakest deck against that Ram Rider Mega Knight is also out of it. He no longer has to worry about it. He just won with it. So now he can move on, and he knows he has pretty decent matchups overall for those decks that are left, including that the fact I think he has a lava deck. Now lava deck against this mortar is not all that bad. He has poison, and the lava deck is a more baity with that flying machine. So if he can just position everything well, he should be okay.
Yeah, and Broken really has just seemed very, very dialed in every single game that we saw from him today. Aslan even getting outplayed in the first few moments of the game. You saw him drop the well played to his opponent. So now definitely meeting a lot more adversity in his second set.
And he's going back at it with the same exact deck. This time we're going to see mortar versus mortar, and it's going to be a battle of which spell and which cycle is better for this matchup. We saw it yesterday. It's not generally who plays it 100% better. It's a little bit on the rotation and a little bit on what is more fortunate for interactions. We know one side has Valk, one side has Knight. We see Hunters, which are very, very good for those miners in case you don't have the Knight in cycle. He doesn't have that same, that same fortunate situation on his end where he has to use that Valk constantly on those hoggies.
Yeah, and those hoggies come down that left-hand side. Valk comes out just as you're calling it. Miner going to go to the back here to try to get a little bit more chip damage in. Deliver going to get dropped up front to tank for that Valkyrie and hopefully turn around. And no, it does not. Gets taken off the board by the Valk, so that Miner just going to set up camp there on the back of that tower.
Yeah, he's a little bit behind on just the general elixir, and I think that caught him off guard with the rotation as well. I would like to see him always have Knight in cycle for either the Valk or the Miner. It is your main tank in this matchup, and it does so well against both of those cards. The Valk will be, once it crosses, if you can just Knight it, it takes care of it, and if not, on the Miner, you're golden. So you need to keep that. You need to make sure you always have 3 elixir in hand.
Yeah, and that's exactly what, you know, Aslan's probably going to be looking for when he talks about win condition here is, you know, that mortar is going to have to come out to bait out the mortar from his opponent, and also to maybe play defense on those Royal Hogs time and time again. That miner is going to kind of be his key to victory when you talk about getting the actual damage straight up on the tower. There you go, miner plus poison, bringing that tower well below, I believe, 1500 HP, or 1600 HP, excuse me.
Yeah, and that's the defense I really want to see out of Aslan here. Don't use the Valk if you don't have to. If he gives you those hogs with no tank in front of it, you log delivery over and over again. Yes, it is not a positive trade, but you don't really care about the positive trade. If you could keep it even and just get miner chip, that's all you really need in this matchup, especially when you're up 700 damage.
Yeah, and he's very happy to just keep kind of doing what he's doing. You see the skeletons coming out, and a log is there preemptively, gets the skeletons off the board. Delivery is in, but Hoggy damage is there. 1679. Broken pretty happy about getting that, that log connection on top of those skeletons. So Aslan going to need to think about changing up his defense just a bit. That's
yeah, he didn't have the log ready, and I think that's the reason why that happened, right? If you don't have the log in cycle, that's exactly the difference. He had the skellies instead, and they got logged, and then it just wasn't enough DPS for him, and look at the difference it made. It got him right back into the game, but he got control again with that defense that we originally said that we wanted to see.
Yeah, and that was a bit of a miscall on my part there from Broken, dropping his mortar 1 tile too low, actually not able to connect to the tower, and we do see a mortar connection on the other side. Aslan firing back here in game number 2, and with this basically being a mirror matchup, or with a very similar deck construction, obviously the Royal Hogs being the win condition for Broken, and the Miner being more important here for Aslan. Looks like Broken's going to step away from this one, give the game to his opponent, and reset for game number 3. This is exactly what you and I were hoping to see here in this winner's bracket.
I love it. Back and forth, back and forth. If we can get the whole series like that, I'll be very excited. And also, heads up from Aslan, right, to recognize that that mortar placement was off. A lot of people would have just put something down, because it's a matter of centimeters. Like, it's not that easy to realize when you're in game. You see the hoggies go down, you're getting damage on your tower, you're attacking with the miner, everything, and then to be sure that that placement isn't correct, because even if you think that it's not the right placement and then it does happen to lock on, you could lose the game because of it.
That is one of the worst feelings when you think a building, especially an expo, a siege unit has dropped 1 tile too low, and it's not. It connects to the tower, and you are all of a sudden so far behind because you're setting up for a push in the opposite lane. I love that recognition there by Aslan. That was one of the big mistakes there by Broken in that game, and that's why you saw those crying skeleton, or that crying skeleton face come out. But otherwise, it was still very nicely played. There was some good adjustments throughout the game, and Aslan now evens himself up 1-1 as we go into game number 3. 1 deck from each of these guys no longer in play, so we'll have to see when Aslan busts out the Lava Hound and when Broken brings out that Mega Knight.
Yeah, and right now it looks like Broken going back to the same exact deck, and on the other side, it does seem like that Ram Rider deck is coming out with the Inferno Dragon. So this is going to be a little bit of a weird matchup. He needs to now recognize what deck he's going up against and make sure he has that Knight in cycle for the most part, because he's going to need it to tank for the Mega Knight. And on top of that, yeah, I didn't know if your sound cut out or not, so I was just going back at it. It's gonna be tough. Looking at it right now, if this is one of those times that I think you do need to Mega Knight in the back. This is one of those matchups where you benefit from a giant push, just because of how little tank units he does have on the other side.
Yeah, and instead of going Mega Knight in the back, he goes Mother Witch in the back, which it did feel like the appropriate moment to Mega Knight, because, you know, The mortar's out of play. You don't have to think about that coming up high at the bridge. He can send in the Hoggies, but a lot of response there for Aslan. You know, he gets a little tilt to the head when you see that fireball come out on the Mother Witch, but I like how patient he's playing. He's not up by a ton of elixir. He's obviously not up by a ton of damage as we just started, so still feeling out his opponent, even though he knows what he's rocking.
Yeah, this is going to come down to who's more patient, in my opinion. If we see Hoggies go down on one side, it could actually lose him the game, because then you know that he gets the free Mega Knight onto the Hoggies, and that's when the pushes start. Right now, he's playing very, very patient. Aslan understands that his best scenario here is either a Mega Knight in the back or just to simply wait for the Hoggies. My only problem with that is if Broken recognizes that he's waiting for the Hoggies to come down, he might never toss them down.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's actually one of the things you have to do in these situations. If you're getting damage in other places, which Broken is in the lead, he's getting good fireball damage. He's had a couple mortars connect here and there. And as long as his opponent doesn't pull the trigger on that Mega Knight, which we finally see come down, let's see how Broken wants to respond now. Could be an easy defense for him, and he could get right back on offense with the piggies. Yeah,
and that hurts right there. The Mega Knight took care of all the Spear Goblins. It was a little bit of a misplay on the placement for them. He needed not really the placement for the actual Spear Goblins. It was the Knight that was placed way too close, and it splashed on everything. He needed to protect those, because although it doesn't seem like a big card or something that makes a lot of effect, you saw how much HP that Mega Knight just hit with. If those Spear Goblins would have been there chipping away a little bit, that would have never happened.
And the fireball coming in, really earning its money there on that last defense, cleaning everything up off the board. And that Ram Rider goes right on through to the tower. Healthy, tanked for. That is going to do it here for game number 2. Aslan looking real clean after a rough game 1 outing here against Broken. He played very well in game 2, was very much back and forth. In game 3, it felt like he did exactly what was right, Eric. He never pulled that Mega Knight down until he knew that he had either enough elixir or enough of a response to deal with the Hogs.
He's playing perfect. Honestly, if I'm looking back at this tournament, I think he's the player that has made the least mistakes and has played the best Clash Royale out of anyone I've seen so far. So, I mean, look, Broken, you haven't been playing bad. You're just going up against someone that just seems so relaxed, right? Like when I see the camera and the way he's playing, it's like if he was just playing against a friend at home.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of some of the CRL pros that you'll watch, and you'll kind of see them, you know, in good or bad moments. They'll kind of take a second, think about what just happened and how they want to change it up moving forward. And that's something that we've seen Aslan do a lot. He gives credit where credit's due to his opponents when they make good plays, but he also goes, okay, you made a good play, I'm going to learn from that. And as you guys just saw on that last screen there, Royal Hogs never out once from Broken.
And it's exactly what I mean. It was the right play. You know, the Hogs are just going to make it tougher for you overall. So I do want to give him credit there that he recognized that even though it is his main tower damage, it would have made the matchup even harder for him. So overall, that isn't a bad thing, but just the matchup in general was pretty tough, and that 1 or 2 mistakes with the Spear Goblins and the Knight placements definitely cost him the match. And this is the adjustment. This is it. Most people would have had barbs here, right? But no, he has the Elite Barbarians, and now there's no Knight on the left-hand side, so he's gonna have to over defend this on the right to make sure that doesn't hit.
Yeah, and we knew Zap was back in cycle, being the first card that Aslan played. E-Barb easily on that right-hand tower, swinging away, gets one more hit in, and that is a devastating start. Even Aslan is a little bit surprised with how much damage he got out of that.
Yeah, he got so much damage, and that is the reason why you have to adapt to the metas. If that was a Barb's push, there was no damage that was going to be on tower. We've seen that over and over again. The Barbs cross the bridge. Even if there's a zap onto the Spear Goblins, the Hunter placement a little bit off to a side would just take care of all of them little by little. And that's the difference maker in someone that's basically dominating their group, as opposed to what we've seen in other groups.
And there was a spot right there for Broken to kind of use the information that he'd learned from watching the first set to maybe even take a tower. He knew in this deck there was going to be Skarmy. He knew that that was the best response that Aslan had in hand because the E-Barbs were just played, right? So that's Skarmy. He had Log. The Log came down just a little bit late, and that's one of the reasons why Broken was not able to get that tower down as low as he'd like.
Yeah, you're really right on that. And look, Broken has been playing well. It just seems a little bit unfortunate the way everything is playing out for him, right? He is going to take this tower, maybe possibly by the time it's over. The recognition is there. Like we talked about in the previous match, the Huggies weren't played, and that's a heads up play. We knew that he knew that there was Skarmy here because he really paid attention early on. He accompanied it with the Log. But overall, how are you going to stop these pushes with the lava now that it's a 2-tower game? And if he's able to cycle 2 lavas and your only real damage dealers for air are the Hunter and the Spear Goblins, and he has a Zap and Fireball, it's not looking all that good.
Yep, Hunter turned around just as you're talking about there. There's the Zap that comes on top of the Spear Goblins. A bunch of Elixir coming down the lane. Fireball does come out again. Miner to the back of the tower. Yes, Broken is alive, but for how much longer? Maybe a Skarmy split here in the middle? No, he just lets that mortar connect. Going to allow that Inferno Dragon to take it off of the board.
Yeah, and now he has no
Aslan,
Hunter for a lava.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I think I saw maybe a yes out of Aslan. They're happy about baiting out the Hunter, drops these E-Barbs down, and maybe goes lava in the pocket.
Yeah, he could either go lava in the pocket, he could just hover a Zap in case there were Spear Goblins, or he can do this, which is I'm also fine with. It just feels like he kind of didn't take advantage of the situation when he could have. The Hunter is back in cycle now. He gets 2 Skellies that just escape that Log and give him enough time to really take care of this. He got the Hunter out again, but slowly he's losing a lot of damage on his tower.
Yeah, now down by about 110 HP. We see this big push coming in. Hunter off the board. E-Barb's up high, and, you know, Aslan may be suffering from a bit of what happened to his opponent in game number 1, giving a lot, or in set number 1, giving too much credit here to Broken. But now we see that Lava Hound up in the pocket. Mortar up high. Mortar does get one shot. That is a massive shot, and the Fireball is in. That was incredible.
And it seemed like he got in his own head of, I want to win the game, instead of realizing I could just save the game and then my push will take care of everything, right? He minored all the way on the other side. You minor defensively there. Make sure that mortar doesn't hit, because it's the only real way you lose the game. You don't need the miner on the tower right now. You have a lava, you have a baby dragon, you have an elite barbarian, you have absolutely everything you need to get enough damage and win the game, but you need to be in the game to win it.
And you got to get that miner. I mean, we saw one of the things that happened yesterday a lot was those miners tanking for mortars offensively. That was a great opportunity for Aslan to get a miner up high and inside, get the attention of that mortar if he was able to do it in time. But as you said, you don't need to do anything super fancy. Just defend the mortar. Get something down. Get that miner down to protect. Let your push do its work. That's why the Lava Hound is so big and beefy. You've got the Inferno there to help out. Just really, really tough few moments there from Aslan, getting a little bit of a taste of his own medicine from, you know, set 1, game 2.
Yeah, and it seems like the caster's curse is real. We spend time talking about how dominant he is, and it looks like he made a blunder, really. I think he could have won that game. He baited out the Hunter and then did nothing with it. You need to take advantage of baiting out the troops. If you don't, then all it does is really give him a free cycle, and he didn't lose much because you did Inferno Dragon and you did Fireball. So you spent just as much as he did.
Yeah, but as you said, his best response to your cards, we saw the Hunter pop the miner numerous times. We all know what the Hunter's going to do to the Lava Hound. We saw how effective it was for defense there for Broken. So Aslan just not making a big recognition on that point. I agree, there's a lot of pressure on the line, and you and I have given, you know, a bit of a hard time to players that kind of go for the kill when it's not time. That was a moment where it was time, and Aslan was just a little too patient.
Yes, and it's like you said, he was on the good end of it in his first match. Now he's on the other side of it, and he needs to recognize that, look, this is it. I'm playing for international finals. When it's time to go, it's time to go. Let's get in it and really close out the game. You don't want to rush closing out the game, but you definitely need to take advantage of situations where you can close it.
Here we go. Best of 5. Game number 5 in our winners bracket here for Group E. Winner of this will go through to our our international finals, where they'll be paying for a lion's share of over $40,000. So this is a huge Game 5 here for Broken and Aslan. Broken with a great comeback win there in game number 4.
Absolutely. And on top of that, the good news for Aslan here is that bar barrel, right? You always want to see a bar barrel when you have Skarmy, because that gives you a lot of defensive value. You know that there's nothing that could get onto it, and that's one of the reasons he won in his first match with this deck. So overall, it's not looking that bad for him. He just needs to get the right value out of his cards.
So both these guys, knowing what the other one is rocking, they're just going to sit back and wait, which is interesting because for Aslan, it's expected. You want him to play in double elixir. Lava Hound's going to shine a lot more there, especially when you talk about building lava pushes and having the elixir to defend the opposite lane. His opponent, Broken, on the other hand, playing something pretty heavy, but not quite as heavy as Lava Hound. Do you think this is a mistake, Eric, or do you think this is correct?
I think it gives the lava a little bit of a upside because this is also a little bit of a heavier lava deck. This deck does have elite barbarians instead of the regular barbs, so it is a little bit heavier, and when you're going to double elixir, they still don't want to play, which is pretty weird. I don't understand why you waited till double elixir if you didn't have the hand that you wanted just yet ready. If you don't have the hand that you want, you definitely need to get that cycle going earlier on and adjust it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it almost feels elementary to say that, you know, on broadcast, but it's 100% true. If you don't have the cycle you want when you're going to get to double elixir time, you need to make that cycle apparent so that when that ticks down to 1, you have what you need, because especially when you're playing against a deck like this, you need to have the correct offense and defensive response to big beatdown heavy decks.
It sure is elementary, like you said, but it could be the reason that his game is not going to pan out the way he wants it to be. Look at this push coming out now. That is good, but the bar barrels can get to those Skarmies. He needs to be very, very careful with his Skarmy placement. That is the one place the Skarmy is not effective. When you play it up high, the bar barrel does take care of them. So he got away with one there, but for the future of this game, he needs to be very careful.
Fireball coming out on that right-hand side to help with those piggies. Piggy's going to get some hits in. Flying Machine going to be enough to clean up both of these troops and create just a little bit of offense. Zap comes in to make sure that that is not the case. And late Barbarians, E-Barbs, just in time, actually.
Yeah, just in time. And also, I think a little preemptive on the Skarmy. We're seeing the little tiny micro, mistakes out of Aslan. It might be that pressure that he's feeling for the first time today.
Yeah, they're so minuscule you might not even notice them if you weren't at a high enough level. But Eric, they are mistakes. They are just, dropping things a little bit early, playing things a little bit late. Just very, very small decision and interaction choices there. Mother Witch not hit by that fireball, going to come through and get some damage in. Nope, Baby Dragon has to come down in response. E-Barbs meeting E-Barbs on the right-hand side with a Miner thrown in the mix.
And it's a full reset of cycle here. It's funny because these are two very heavy decks that you'd expect the pushes to be doing damage and damage and damage, and we've seen all double elixir pushes and basically no damage other than some minor chip.
Yeah, here we go. Mega Knight working its way across the bridge on the right-hand side, turns around to go back to the Mother Witch. Left-hand side, we see a Flying Machine there putting in some work on the Lava Hound. Lava Hound, though, getting some good damage in on this tower.
It is some good damage, but look at this Mother Witch getting a lot of value and forcing out another defense out of him. This has been the biggest problem for Aslan all game long. He's been forced to use the Infernal Dragon or the Baby Dragon defensively because of how many, and what a nice recognition, what a good fireball, and that's going to be it for Aslan. He's not going to be able to come back.
That was such a good fireball, man. He played right into the hands of his opponent, and he knew it. He knew it instantly. The moment that Skarmy comes down and that fireball comes out, it is GG, well played, knowing everything his opponent had for defense. He drops the Knight down low on the right-hand side, or excuse me, the Miner to catch that Mega Knight. He goes E-Barbs up high to catch his opponent's E-Barbs. What's left? The Skarmy. Great sellout move on that fireball.
Absolutely. And I also think that it's a big deal that he decided to, use the fireball onto the Zappies on his push, Aslan, right before all this happened, because you're down the fireball, and then the Mother Witch spawning those hoggies that I was speaking about forced an Infernal Dragon. If he would have had that Infernal Dragon in his hand, he could have just played that directly onto the Mega Knight with a Miner, and it would have taken care of it. And then he had those Elite Barbarians for the other side, right? But it forced out so many different defenses and weird positionings and cycles. In my opinion, that Mother Witch ended up being the MVP of this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, that was the beginning of the end there for Aslan, and it was beautifully put together by Broken. You know, that's one thing that we saw here a couple times today from Group E, was that they waited for their opponents to play directly into their hand. It wasn't right when it happened. You know, it was maybe 2 or 3 plays or even rotations down the road after the mistake was made that they really went all out. And there we go. There's the first predictive log in game number 4 that takes that tower down. And this was the game that felt like Aslan really let this competition slip through his fingers. Miner goes to the back. Nothing there to tank for the mortar. Tower goes down. Here we are in game number 5, and this was right after that beautiful fireball.
It sure was. And look, if you're Aslan now, the only, kind of consolation is the fact that both of these players went down 0-3. So maybe you're not as worried. You could still make it into that international stage. But congratulations to Broken. Really, we all, I think, expected Aslan, especially after we saw him win that first match, and then the way that he played at the beginning of this set, to really move on. So Broken staying in it, playing very well, recognizing the defenses, and he definitely deserves to be the leader of this group. And Aslan now just needs to go to the drawing board and make sure he gets into that next stage, and then worry about being first or second seed.
And I love the deck composition here from Broken. You look at the amount of different cards, unique cards that he used to make up these 3 different decks with 3 different win conditions, 3 different archetypes, and 3 different play styles. I really do love it. I think it was a very brilliant performance from him today, and he is rewarded by coming through these 2 sets, picking up 6 wins. And even though Aslan made it very close, it did seem that Broken was the man to beat here in Group E.
Absolutely. That you said it perfectly. That is the way it went. He played a lot of different decks. All of them had that Elite Barbarian or Night Witch in them. He knew what he had to do. He knew what was the strongest things to be played in this tournament, and it paid off with a nice 3-2. And I think that's what we expected, right? When you see 2 players dominate early on 3-0, 3-0, and then they play each other, it usually ends up in that 3-2 set. And now it's the same thing for the other side usually, right? When you see 2 players go 0-3, 0-3, they usually tend to fight it out till the end as well. So I expect another 3-2 set out of the bottom. It all really depends on, can Big Spin do something with that 3 Musketeers?
Yeah, that 3 Musketeers deck really is kind of the crux of his success. Will it work or will it not? And he has to find out a way to make it work. Rufy on the other side of it with a shot at redemption. If he is able to take down Big Spin, he will be able to face off against Aslan again. I don't know if he wants to because of how that first set went, but hopefully both these guys have kind of settled their nerves after their initial 0-3 sets. And as you said, maybe we'll see a bit of a shootout here in our closing set of the day. Rufy and Big Spin, both 0-3 on the day, now looking to stay alive here in the GameStars International Group Stage.
They're looking to stay alive, and Big Spin just showing that he has 2 decks with the Elixir Pump, because this is not the same deck with that 3 Musketeers. So, I mean, look, all the power to you, my friend. I have not seen an Elixir Pump played in competition in about 3.5 years. So, I mean, let's see if it works.
And that's not an exaggeration, dude. That is like a legitimate number.
No, that's legit.
That is an actual number of years and years of competition. I mean, might as well see the Wizard come out next. But Big Spin, you know what? More power to you, man. Miner going to go to that tower. We'll see how Rufy wants to play it. He gets a nice King Tower activation there. So a good start for Big Spin that could be running. What is this? Is this Elixir Golem?
I don't know. With the Lumberjack, it usually ends up being more of Loon, but like nothing really makes sense in this deck. It could be Elixir Golem. It could be a weird Golem deck as well.
I was gonna say maybe regular Golem.
It's a pretty weird composition because of those. Yeah, there's a Golem because of the Skeleton Dragons and the Dark Prince. I thought it would be Golem. but it's not something we're used to seeing at all.
So Roofy does have, I believe this is his one deck with the building in it. He has the bomb tower coming out to help assist against this golem. He's going to have to use a lot of defensive troops here and play it very, very correctly because there is very little single target DPS on his side of the board.
Those NATOs are going to be key to be able to take care. Oh no, the fireball, man. That would have been game over. I'm telling you, if he hits those Skelly Dragons, that would have been game. There would have been such an easy defense with that Ice Wiz alone, and then he would have been able to pressure with the Loon if he wanted to. The fact that he had to drop the Knight early on will now complicate things a little bit more because he doesn't have a tank for that Dark Prince anymore.
Yep, and last time you saw the Knight, I believe, came out to pick up that bar barrel. Now instead has to use the NATO a little bit early on. Now NATO comes out on offense as well. Fireball in this time, hitting more of what Roofy wants, but Roofy's been here before, up in damage by a lot and struggling to get that damage in on tower. Miner off to an odd spot, but does connect, bringing that down to 473.
Baby Dragon got 2 splash hits on it, which are definitely good news for him. He needs to be careful here. The defenses get a little more tricky when you see that rage. So just be careful. Make sure you take that into consideration when you're defending here. I would like to see that NATO. There it is. You need to NATO onto that splash because the fireball alone on the Electro Dragon we know does not do enough damage. So he needs to constantly use that NATO and get some splash on it.
Nice defense there. 2 baby dragons coming across the bridge. Gonna have to worry about 1 belch. Yep, there it is. Dark Prince comes down to take up that second baby D. And there we go. Knight up high. Lumberjack, Dark Prince to meet. Not gonna have anything to stop this balloon. Miner is there. Balloon gonna cruise on through. There's the NATO to pull it back.
There's a NATO to put it back, but it just seems like you're prolonging what's gonna happen regardless, right? At this point, there is no way that Roofy doesn't win this game. It's not like the other one where, you know, he didn't have the tower damage ready on spell. He didn't actually have to cycle anything. He just knew fireball, tornado, and it was over. So Roofy, congratulations on the first win. And on the other side, man, it's the deck choices. I don't even think he's playing worse. It's just like, why?
Yeah, well, yeah, what do you do? How do you do it? How do you win when one of your cards is basically not even useless, but it's actually detrimental to your success? It's causing you to have to pay more attention to it. It's causing you to have to spend more elixir on it, and it's allowing your opponent to create this gap in your game plan for a very, very little cost, right? That Miner plus fireball, it's almost a 10 times out of 10 thing. Maybe that 1 time out of 10 you don't throw the fireball just to bait out the troop, and then you fireball at the bridge, whatever the idea is. And then Roofy, of course, still having a little bit of trouble controlling those spells.
Yeah, Roofy just, I think he gets a little bit nervous when it comes down to actually closing the game. This time it worked out well. That baby dragon definitely gave him a little bit of that extra push. But on Big Spin's side, I'm not really sure what his decks match up well against. There's way too much fireball. There's way too much miner. And I'm not sure. When there isn't that, it's usually Mega Knight. So overall, it's pretty tough for him.
Here we go, just with the bridge spam. We see the skeletons come down with that royal delivery. 7 elixir 2 or 8 elixir to 9 here. Big Spin up 1. Miner going into the left-hand side. Skeleton Dragon's going to come down in response. Now a fireball has to be, or excuse me, the poison has to be dropped on the right-hand side and not the left. We'll see if Big Spin wants to sell out just a little bit here.
And Big Spin is so fortunate that that miner was already placed as he put that elixir pump, because he had used the bar barrel and the lumberjack, and I'm not sure he had anything ready to go to defend that pump. So he would have given up a free pump to that miner. He got very fortunate that it went on to the other side. But what I do want to see out of him, seeing as he could take that miner constantly, is maybe going that old school CMC Chris style play from 2016. Most people still watching this game might not even know who they are, but it used to be the play, right? You see a pump, and when they have lumberjack, dark prince, all this that could catch your miners, you actually miner the tower. They're gonna try and catch it, but they're gonna miss, obviously, because it's not on the pump, and you poison with it. So the poison takes care of the pump, your miner gets chipped, and they use a troop that's not gonna be really that effective.
Yeah, one of my favorite plays in the game is that miner swerve to the tower, get the poison or spell down on top of the pump and the defensive troop, and You know, we'll see if that's something that Rufy decides to do throughout the rest of this game. We see their high skeletons plus the Musketeer take that Dark Prince off the board, create a little bit of offensive pressure. I wouldn't really like to see him double down on this push, as his opponent is full, but his opponent's also leaking, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's very weird to see someone leak with a elixir pump deck. That's usually everything that you don't want to do. You want to constantly be putting things down to take advantage of that elixir, because what you show when you have an elixir pump is there is no surplus of elixir at any time in my deck, right? That's basically what you're saying. I need a pump because I have a shortage of elixir.
Yes, exactly. And when you find yourself leaking elixir with a pump, it's just kind of, it just shows that your player doesn't know what to do in that moment. They're just kind of playing out of sorts. So here we go. Golem push with the Lumberjack Dark Prince behind. Easy cleanup there for Rufy. You can kind of see Big Spin just going like, what am I supposed to do here, man?
Yeah, not pick these decks, man. To be honest with you, if he used the 3 Musketeer deck, the side with the 2, which is your main elixir spent, is just gonna get delivery log, right? And on the other end, you just Valk Skellies if they come with another push. So I don't even know which matchup is worse for him when you're looking at this. Mortar also for the 3 Musketeers is terrible. It's just a lose for all situations, in my opinion. That Musketeer placement was actually not good at all, because it was far enough ahead to where it was going to attract some troops. But even with that mistake, he still defends.
Yeah, which is shocking, right? You figure a Golem mistake this late, or a mistake this late in the game defending against Golem, a raged up Golem, have you, and you see there just missing the Dark Prince push. Big Spin just kind of self-destructing, it feels like, but he's definitely not out of this game. That's the other thing about this, is Rufy has just left the door wide open for his opponent here to come on through. Barb squeezes through, gets a couple shots in on that mortar. Poison is ticking away. Skeleton Dragons, one of them untouched.
Yeah, he just needs to tank for that Musketeer a little bit better. He has to expect, and that is just a terrible Valkyrie play. There is no reason to drop that down. There is nothing that you need to tank that Musketeer for. There wasn't even a troop down, and now you're forced to use a delivery early on, which you definitely need for the Electro Dragon later on to make sure the poison takes care of it. And now you have to quickly cycle over into the next rotation. The Valk comes down way too early, and he put himself in a bad position just because of a preemptive Valk that really wasn't necessary.
Yeah, it was dropped way too low. It follows the Golemite to the right-hand side, and now Big Spin taking advantage of that mistake, trying to break on through, but I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it. That Valkyrie up high, Musketeer down low, Miner is on the tower on the left-hand side. We see one more Golem push being put together, but there's only 15 seconds remaining. Eric, I don't believe that's going to be enough time.
It's not, and the reason why it's not enough time is because he didn't recognize one little thing that we've seen out of, especially someone like Ruben. When that mistake comes down, when you know his rotation isn't the right way, it turns into bridge spam. Leave that Golem somewhere else. There is 30 seconds. You have the Lumberjack that just died. You have a Dark Prince. You have the Skelly Dragons. He just used his delivery, so he doesn't have anything for that. Spam, rotate, and he Dark Princed all the way in the back.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that we're seeing here, showing a little bit more inexperience, is not being able to punish your opponents immediately when they make misplays. I mean, listening to Lapacati or guys talk about him, you talk about someone like Ruben, but you know, these guys will see someone make a play 30 seconds prior to, and they'll go, oh, that was a big mistake. And then you'll see exactly why 30 seconds later. Exactly what you're talking about right there. There were numerous moments for Big Spin to pick apart and take advantage of the mistakes that Rufy had made, and he just was not aggressive enough.
Yeah, and Rufy kind of being fortunate, I'd like to say, that wasn't pounced on by Big Spin. It might also be a little bit of self-doubt, right? When you lose 5 games in a row, or you're down 4 games and then in the second one you're kind of losing, you doubt your movements a little bit more, and I think we saw that in the elixir leaked and the lack of pressure, and I think he's going back at this deck for a 3rd time now.
Yeah, so we'll see how it fares. We see the Dark Prince setting up in the back, Skeleton Dragons there. We know what he's going to be playing. Rufy setting up with the Fireball, taking out those Skeleton Dragons, and now Zappy's here to stop the charge of this Dark Prince. We see a NATO to pull everything in, but I just think that's a little bit more of than you need to pull off this early on.
Yeah, especially when you're down 0-2, you know what? Let it go, right? It is what it is. He defended it. Let's get into our rotation, and now it's not a good spot. If he can get down, I don't think the fireball should come down at this point. Just let it go. And Rufy did do the right thing here. You saw the difference between one and the other. One understood when to let it go. The push is more than enough. You know what, let me just restart everything, and the other one tried to make some magic happen. So definitely panning out better for Rufy, but he does need to be careful because there is a full pump on the other side.
E-Barb's coming right on through. Even if they do take that tower down, as you said, a pump on the board and a golem setting up in the back. Nice placement there from the Dark Prince. Actually going to keep it alive. Should be able to charge on top of this Mother Witch. Rufy does decide to send in the Bar Barrel to stop it. That's a lot of elixir spent on the back end.
It is, but I think it was the right play there, just because of the fact that if not, I'm not sure he could pull off a defense on that push, and that flying machine just saved him the game right there if he is able to get something else down, which I don't think so. And that is all product of that elixir pump. We saw the difference now that there's no miner on the bottom deck.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, you called it perfectly there. The elixir pump is down, and while he does take a lot of damage early on, there's nothing there to get that elixir pump off the board. Now going for a straight tower trade to reset, and I don't know if I like this play because his opponent shouldn't allow him to reset.
I don't like that play at all. This was a terrible interaction for Big Spin. There is no reason you should give up 800 free damage on a tower, and then you still know you're gonna have to defend because there's a flying machine Huggies coming at you. That's not gonna be defended by a tower alone. It just doesn't work that way. So why give it up, especially when you have Dark Prince, you have NATO, you have everything you need in hand to defend. You don't need to pump again. You're already up a tower. It's a defensive game now, not an offensive.
Yeah, pumping that late in the game, I mean, even when you're in this deep of double and getting close to double or deeper in double and triple, is like a lot of times your opponents will just ignore that pump, as you see happening here in this game. Yes, Golem is going to go right on through to that tower and get some damage in, but I feel like at this point, Big Spin is just trying to ignore his King Tower and just not act like that's happening, but that tower is going to go down, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, this is not something you can ignore, whether you like it or not. This is not a text from your boss on your day off. This is Clash Royale, right? So, I mean, you like it, you don't like it, you just lost the game because you didn't want to defend.
And there we go. Flying Machine gets a second shot in. Big Spin pulls away with the big goose egg here in the Gamestars group stage. Group E is now finished, of course. Great performances here from Aslan, but not able to keep up with Broken. Rufy picking up his first 3 wins of the day over Big Spin, who had a very rough time and also got called out in the pregame by Broken, but there's no reason to pile on. I'm sure he's had a tough time today with all of those elixir pumps already, Eric.
Yeah, and I just think he put himself in a terrible position deck choice wise. I don't think it was a problem that much of gameplay in a lot of the matches. Yes, he had a couple matches where there were mistakes, but overall he lost before the game started with the deck choices.
So, you know, here we go. We're going to talk through it a little bit. There you see elixir pump in hand for Big Spin, but not on the board. His opponent, Rufy, this is the deck that he has with the bomb tower. Nice defenses here. There was a couple moments that were questionable from Rufy, but still able to close things out. You see that fireball coming in. I think the biggest moment in that one, was that the one? Oh, no, yes, excuse me. It's this one with the Valkyrie that was cycled to the right-hand side.
Yeah, and I mean, I just keep going back to it. I'm trying to think what the rotation was and why he didn't defend this push, right? We saw this same push came in later in the game and he Dark Prince NATO'd and everything was taken care of in 2 seconds.
Yep.
So I'm trying to think of the thought process why he would do that. The elixir pump, like you said, this late in the game is just not necessary, especially when you don't really need to push. So Rufy, look, I applaud him for, he definitely had a big error against Aslan, but he definitely was able to, you know, reset mentally and come in strong to this set, because it's not easy to take away a 3-0.
Yeah, and you know, and you just see here Big Spin being the only person that you and I said, the first person in 3+ years where we have seen anyone rock the Elixir Pump, and it's just very clear that this is not a card that should be played in competition right now, especially in this meta specifically. It just doesn't work. There's too many miners, there's too many fireballs, there's just not enough of a way to defend and actually get that Elixir advantage out on the board. So Rufy gets a shot at redemption against Aslan. We'll be going to that match, of course, down the road a little bit. Broken, the man, as you can see, of the day here, picking up 6 wins in his 2 sets. And we are maybe going to get to speak to Rufy, which I think would be a pretty interesting conversation, just to kind of talk to him about how much he turned his day around, and honestly, maybe his opinion personally on what he thinks about playing against Elixir Pump. I can't imagine. I mean, I almost would just love to talk to Big Spin about it to see what his thoughts are.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to see that. And I also would like to see his opinion on, look, you have to play Aslan again. And that first set, that first match 3-0 was not really close. So what do you have to really change in order to make it happen? Because that's the only way you get through. You have to beat someone that dominated you in the first time you guys met up. And you know, it's gonna be nice to see. I'm excited for it, and I'm all up for that Cinderella story, that comeback. Look, you beat me 3-0. I'm gonna beat you 3-0 now.
Yeah, totally, man. And I think, you know, with getting new decks and maybe getting to reset on the day, we could see a very different Rufy facing off against Aslan. And, you know, that is going to do it for you and I this week when we're talking about Gamestars. Of course, you and I will be casting Clash Royale League this weekend, Saturday and Sunday mornings, if you guys want to check that out. But we'll be back here on the 26th of April at 9 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. CEST for another entire week of action before we get into our international finals. We're going to finish out the last few groups. We still have F, G, and H that have to compete and find out who the winner of those groups are. And then we will be into our wild card, or not our wild card, but our elimination games, where those second and third places figure out who will be moving forward and who will be going home. And then it's the international finals. Over $40,000 up to grab, up to distribute, and of course that winner taking home the lion's share of that prize, man. It's going to be a crazy next month and a half.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing to watch. And that week that we start off with, that we have 3 groups, those 3 groups are, one, they have the star of this tournament in everyone's eyes, I'm assuming, with Igor, and then you have Hugo, you have Eternity, and then my favorite thing of everything, elimination matches. I purposely would put Liquid, you know, in a 2-4 hole just so we could play 7 elimination matches in a row. That was all on purpose. So I love to live for those moments, and now I get to cast a whole week of them.
Yeah, so let's sit down and talk to Rufy. Let's see what Rufy has to say. You and I have some questions for him. First of all, Rufy, congratulations on picking up that second set win. You had a little bit of a rough start today. Can you talk to me about how you changed things from your first set with Aslan to your second set with Big Spin?
Yeah, to start off, I was really stressed out at the first battle with Gang and lost 3-0. But then I talked with my friends and they told me to chill out. And like, yeah, I managed to do reverse sweep, like 3-0. And yeah, I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really important thing, Eric. You talk about like that team chemistry, right? Having to boost each other up in between games. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, yeah, I was just gonna touch on the same thing. It's very important to have those friends. And do you think you also had a lot better matchups in the second set than in the first set? What do you think about playing against someone that has Pump in 2 decks?
Yeah, I think I have matchups in 3 battles. Like, my opponent used to play 3 times in a row the same deck, which I didn't have a bad matchup against it. So yeah, they weren't really bad. They were too.
Were you surprised that he was running Elixir Pump? Have you seen anyone run Elixir Pump high on ladder or in grand challenges in the last, I don't know, year?
Yeah, I think Elixir Pump is maybe back in the meta because of the Earthquake nerf and the variable bait aspect. So yeah, for example, in 3 Musketeers decks, it is very viable. And yeah.
Yeah, it's viable, but obviously there is some very tough matchups which he dealt with today. And I think looking forward, you have to play Aslan again. What do you think you need to change for the result to be, instead of 0-3 to 3-0 for you?
I think I need to chill out, and that's the main thing to do. Because I can't really change decks, so I think if I chill out and play on my high level, so I will have chances to win.
I like that, man. I think you had a really, really great attitude in your video before the show today. I think you did a great job bouncing back in your set. So congratulations, man. We look forward to casting more of your matches down the road. Now you get to go enjoy, relax, celebrate. You get to pick home that second or third place spot here in Group E.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Take care, man. I love it, man. I love it. Humble, hardworking. He recognizes what he did wrong. He knew he just needed to chill out, which is, it's such a monumental thing, controlling your nerves in Clash Royale.
It is, and that goes to show how important it is to have that little group, right? That little group of players and friends that can get you out of it, because it's so easy to say, I need to chill, but it's a lot harder to actually chill when you lose 0-3. So when you have those friends that are next to you and you know that they can really, you know, calm you down, get your head right, and tell you, look, you are this good. You just need to relax. Let's go. And it definitely helped them out.
Yeah, so talking through all of our, finalists that we'll be seeing down the road from this week, we had Lucas GM, SoCal, Burkan, Financier. Today, adding to that list, we have Broken. 5 guys through, 5 guys eliminated. 5 days of competition, but we've got a lot more where that comes from. Eric and I will be back on the 26th. That's right, the 26th of April. Same time, same place to talk through groups F, G, and H, and a lot of names familiar there in F, G, and H. Eric, I'm very, very excited to see how some of those guys fare here in the Gamestars International.
Yeah, we have CRL players, we have no-till league players, we have no-till world players, we have SB, Igor, One Hive Hunter, Eternity, Hugo, all in 3 groups. So it's going to be a very, very exciting week. And once we're done with those, what more excitement? Elimination matches over and over and over again. And in those elimination matches, we have top players. We have Dimas, we have Mateja. So it's just going to be a lot more of high-tier gameplay.
So guys, make sure you turn on your notifications, hit that subscribe button here on this channel so you can not miss a moment of action for Gamestars International Season 1 Clash Royale. I'm Andrew Guy, that is Eric Benamou. We will be back in just a couple weeks. Take care.